Hey guys, we're here to create some buttons and animate those buttons and give them some commands to get our animations playing. So here is a quick animation that I have. I want to create an animation or animated buttons that will tell this to when to stop and when to start and when to replay and possibly when to click on a button and take me to another web page. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to first need a place to create some buttons. That's what we need to start with. So I'm going to create my buttons on a frame before all of these because we're going to have to do that anyways. What we have to do is slide these frames over. So I'm going to click on one end and drag to the top. Make sure you grab all your layers, all your frames, and when you hover over it and you see that little white box showing by your cursor, you're then going to slide it over. I'm just going to slide it over just once. Later, if you decide you need to slide it over more to add more animation at the beginning of your on your splash page, then you can do that. But I'm going to slide it over just one time. And what I'm going to do here is create a new layer. And I'm going to name this layer buttons. And I only want this one frame here. So everything else on this layer, I'm going to go ahead and select and right click and remove those frames. So now I'm here on this empty layer, which is great. That's where I want to be. What I want to do is start to create my buttons. You can use any shape, you can use any drawing to do this. And we're going to give these buttons actually some animated features as well. So I'm going to start with a simple rectangle, and I want my rectangle to be curved on the corners on all sides. So I have this option chosen, and it shows 25. If I want to customize them, I can say, hey, I want this to be 0, and draw my rectangle, and you can see kind of a little stylized look to it, which is kind of cool. But I don't want it like that. I want it to just be a simple button like that. Okay, I'm going to create some text for it, and I'm going to say I want this to say in caps. I'm going to go play. But obviously that's not going to show up very well on this button. So what I'm going to do is actually change it to white. And I'm going to go ahead and move it right up here. Looks good. I'm going to select this and kind of reshape this a little bit. Get it how I want it to be. That doesn't need to be, I can do that. Have fun with it there. Cool. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to zoom in and I want to select both. That's my text selected. I'm going to shift select my object. So now I have a rectangle over both of those things. I'm going to group those together. So modify and group. Okay. So now I can move them wherever. That's one good design for a button. I can go and start to create some other buttons as well, using designs however you feel you would like to do that. Now I'm going to right click on this, convert to symbol, and I'm going to make sure that type is set to button, and I'm going to label this a underscore button. Oops, not underscore, underscore button. Okay, and it's already taken. I'm going to call it play button 2. Okay, so there we go. So now in my library, I have play button tool 2 right here. Now I want to animate this button. So I'm going to click into it. Oops, getting kind of glitchy. Okay, so you should be able to go into your selection tool and double click into your button. And when you do that, you'll see that this happens. I have up, over, down, and hit. Okay, right now this is what it's going to look like by default. Up. Okay, over, I might say I want it to look like. I'm going to go ahead and click on that and put F6, create a keyframe there. And what I want to do is change the color of how this looks when I'm over it. Okay, so I'm going to say I'm going to click into the back part here, and I'm going to change the fill to something like red. and then I'm going to go back out to it. So up and over. So when I hover over it, this is what's it's gonna look like. And then when I press it down, I want it to look a little bit different. So I'm actually going to hit F6 here, and I'm going to go into the background again. Oops, that's the text. Let me go into the background, have that highlighted. I'm going to change that to something brighter, just to show an example. Here's a little bit brighter color. And I'm going to go back to the group, and I'm going to change the text to black. And then I'm going to go out. And so this is what it looks like when I hit down. So by default, it's going to look like this. When I'm over it, it looks like this. When I click on it, it'll look like that. Okay. So I'm going to go out, and right now, nothing happens, right? So without, and if I go to play and preview, right now, it just is there for a second. So what I want to do is go to Control and enable simple buttons. And so you can see that when you hover over it, it changes to over. Click on it, and you can see how that changes as well. So what I want you to do is create some simple buttons that we can use to interact with for our animation for your walk cycle. Of course, you come up with your own style, come up with your own color layouts and things like that. But this is what we're going to start with for right now. So you're going to need a play button. And in order to move and interact with this, what you're going to have to do is go to Control, turn off enable buttons, and move these around. You only want that enabled for when you actually have to preview what your button actions are, what they're looking like. So now this is here, and it's saved here underneath my play button too. So I'm going to start creating my other buttons here. Remember, some other ones that consider your replay button that you're going to need to do, as well as see more, which I'll get into later. We'll link that one to a website. So create some buttons, animate those buttons, create some nice little animations underneath them, and that way they're going to be ready for when we actually create our splash page for our animation. So that's all for now.